Welcome to On Writing with Onkarabile, the show that is aiming to promote reading and writing in our communities. We seek to restore the pride and dignity of Africans through the power of reading and writing. Ladies and gentlemen, help me to welcome Mr. Gift Tlou, who is here today to share more on how to promote reading and writing through his work. Mr. Gift, thank you so much, sir, for coming to the show.
Well, thank you, Onkarabile, for inviting me, and good afternoon to your viewers and everyone who's streaming this, and thank you for being here. Good afternoon to yourself.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Gift, let's talk about your work as a journalist. You know, or maybe because people don't know you, just briefly tell us who you are.
Well, basically, my name is Gift Tlou, like you've already introduced me, and I'm a journalist since 2019. I started off with community newspapers under Caxton, and I was fortunate enough after a year staying with them to move to a national publication under independent media, the Star in particular, and I'm also a social content creator that is your social media since we are moving towards this direction. I do much sports work, and I also do a bit of radio, but this is on a campus platform, particularly on voiceovers of our FM.
Okay. And you mentioned the national publication, which is the Star, particularly. Yes. One of the biggest newspaper that we know. Everybody wants to be on the newspaper, my leader.
Yeah, that's correct. That's correct.
And I remember our last conversation with you. We spoke on how authors actually, can get themselves into the newspaper or get their books into the newspaper so that people can read about them, so that people can know about their products.
Yes.
Let's talk about that. How does one, especially as an author, get themselves to the nursepaper?
Well, it's quite difficult because number one, you need to sell yourself. You need to sell yourself, sell your story, tell your story to the journalist or the writer. Explain to them why must you be on this certain publication? Why must they listen to you? I mean, like you said, on top of your question, that everyone wants to find themselves in a newspaper. So there's a unique angle that you need to make sure that you sell and capture to the journalist. Remember that journalists also report to someone else. In this form, editors. So the journalist also needs to go to the editor and convince the editor that we need to publish Mr. Onkarabile or Mr. So-and-so or Mrs. So-and-so for their story. They've got a unique story that they're telling. So number one, like I said, the angle or your story and how it will impact the reader. Readers want something that will impact them. I mean, editors that will impact their readers. I mean, it's worthless. Why should I start reading your piece if you're not saying something that will not change my life? Or, like I said, make a meaningful contribution to my livelihood. So if you've got a story to share with the public and your story is good enough, well presented, then there is a space for you in publications.
Okay, my leader. Someone is listening to you and is saying, but there is no story that cannot change. I mean, especially if I'm an author, I wrote something. I believe that when I write something, it's meant to change someone's lives.
Yes.
But then how is it that you can reject my story, which I believe that is impactful? It can change someone's lives. So the angle that you're talking about, Mr. Gift, someone is saying to you, Mr. Gift Tlou, the angle that you're talking about, which angle? Which is that angle that you're talking about?
So these might be different. Also, another thing that we need to be aware of, the stories that have already been in that publication, what they've already been telling. I mean, I'll look close to home with your story. Most people have heard about your story, from a butler to an author. You know what I mean? That's an angle on its own. You were able to overcome diversity with what you were doing in your work before. You were able to have a job, a full-time job. It was a full-time job, am I correct? A full-time job. And you were able to find time to publish as well, to write and publish. And in the midst of that, you also had other things that required your time, your commitment, but you were able to juggle things around. You know what I mean? Now, if this one comes, they do not have such things or such elements in their story. You know what I mean? So it's really difficult to sell that kind of a story. So the angle that I'm talking about is something that people are able to relate to. That okay, I'm also going through this, so it is possible to overcome such barriers in life and do something and make something out of myself. Yeah.
No, it makes sense, my leader. And there's something that I remember you spoke about three things
Yeah.
that the journalist will need or editors will need. You spoke about impactful, you spoke about the facts.
Yeah.
And what was the third one? I remember you spoke about three things.
Okay.
But as you remember, let's talk about the facts. You also mentioned the most important thing about the facts.
Yeah.
Yes, please share with us about that.
So, one thing about journalists that you need to make sure that you're always on top of it, and editors hate is making mistakes. I remember as publications, we're in competition with other publications. You know what I mean? Why must I keep reading the so-and-so publication if I know that these ones, they're making mistakes? No, I'll jump to another publication. If you go to any store, it's very rare that you'll find a certain publication sitting alone. It's a number of titles.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Everywhere, yes.
Yeah. Now,
yes.
if I know that these publications, the writers here make mistakes, I'm going to say this publication, they make mistakes. I'm not going to say Onkarabile, the writer from so-and-so. No. I'm going to say that writers from this publication, they're not good. You know what I mean? So, facts, what you give us, how accurate it is, and is it out there? Are we able to find it? In front of you there, you've got your books.
Yes.
So whenever I was maybe dealing with you, I could say that Onkarabile, in this book you're saying so and so and so, and you could easily reference it.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Remember, in the story, I'm communicating with people from 9 provinces nationwide. So fact checking is very important in our profession, especially on a day-to-day. So you need to have that and back it up. And also the time that you provided. I mean, journalists, sometimes we work under pressure and time. So if you're uncertain that, no, I'll check, what are you saying? You're not convincing me. You know what I mean? How you communicate with me should also be convincing. Remember, I'm selling the story to someone else as well. So if I find that the information that you're giving me, you're unsure, like, oh yeah, okay, I'll have a look at it. But what I like about you, you've got your copies. If I say page 5 of this book, you can easily say page 5. You know what I mean? Yeah. But if you tell me that, let me check that, we'll speak later about it, you're uncertain, you dilly-dally, then we say, no, let's leave. This person is uncertain about their facts. Let's drop this.
And yes, my leader. And, as you are saying this, remember that, as you are saying, if you do a mistake,
yeah,
at the end of the day, we're not going to blame that person. We're going to blame you.
Yes,
we're going to say it's either Gift Tlou or the Star newspaper.
Yes.
So I now understand why it's very much important that you guys verify and find that something is concrete.
That's correct, yeah.
Because now it will backfire to you.
Yes.
So yeah, no, it makes sense. So tell me, my leader, you mentioned something very important, that you receive thousands of emails.
yeah, on a daily, yes.
People want to be on the newspaper. Is the newspaper still effective in the days that we are living in today, especially the hard copy one?
The hard copy one.
Yes.
Yeah, well, look, it's an interesting conversation. It's an interesting conversation. But most of the time I say that you look at the stats, newspapers are flying off the shelves. You know what I mean? Yes, there are certain publications that are going through a difficult period, and they had to shut down their doors, they had to shut down their businesses. But it's a conversation that I really do not want to go deep into it. But like I said, that for me, the newspapers, they still have the market, and they still have space within the media industry. I mean, there are people who still read newspapers. I mean, after being published or writing your stories, I mean, you'd get calls from people. And I can tell you that some stories that are in the newspaper are not on the website first. You know what I mean? They are broken first via the newspaper, and people will reach out to you because the way they've seen the story, they read that story. And another thing that I'm not sure if you might be aware of is that some websites will just give you a brief summary of what the story about, a snippet, you know what I mean? For the full publication, you need to subscribe. That is where you're taking out funds, just like buying the publication. It's either you subscribe or you buy the physical copy, the publication. So other people, you'll remember that, yes, as much as we're moving towards the times of digital technology, but some people are still have not welcomed or opened up to this idea of making payments online and all that. So why must I put my banking details on a website and these people start debiting me money? I'd rather go buy the physical copy. So which is why I'm saying that we still have the need for newspapers. And newspapers, like I said, it gives you an overview. You know what I mean? I'll make you an example. Something might happen outside. One, the person who's outside or closer to the scene will take out their phones and tweet that thing or put it on whatever social media. That person has broke the story. He's on top there. He's the hero. You know what I mean? We've already heard the story. You know what I mean? It was instant. They broke the story. But now, when I come with my cameraman, I find out what really happened on the scene. You know what I mean? That person will remember he was taken by the hype. He only saw what happened, but why did that thing happen? A practical example, let's say a police officer, someone driving a police car, he knocks this wall outside this premises. He knocks this wall. So, I was taking a video. It's a police van. So, if I'm viewing this thing on social media, in the comfort of my home or wherever am I say that a police officer drove over a wall at a certain premises. You hear what I'm saying? A police officer. And I find out that the person who was actually behind the wheel is not a police officer. Yes, he was driving a police vehicle. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But on social media, remember I took this video instant. I saw what? I saw someone driving a van. I didn't verify if that person is a police officer.
Yeah.
That's where a newspaper comes in. On social media, they might pick it up later. But on social media, what we get right now, it'll be the person who broke the story, it'll be a police officer. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So a newspaper, what I'm trying to, I'm painting a picture that a newspaper will give you that full overview, an article of what happened. How did this guy obtain this car? You know what I mean? So that's the role of a newspaper. So that is why I'm saying that we still have a space in this community and day and
I
age.
agree, my leader. And I'm laughing because you are saying something that is opposite to what we normally know.
Yeah.
Of saying newspaper or journalists, they are liars. So now you are coming with another angle of showing that actually newspapers are not the ones that actually they do their best to verify.
They do their best to verify.
As you spoke about facts,
Yeah.
and it makes sense now as you are unfolding this incident of saying, obviously, I'm gonna assume that person is a police officer.
And I'm sorry to interject. It makes sense because on the video, there's a person driving a police car. You know what I mean? You can't drive that car if you're not a police.
Exactly.
So yes, and you broke it first. But remember, I have time. You know what I mean? I have time. My deadline is only 6 p.m., 7 p.m., sometimes it's 11 p.m. So I can still come here and find out what really happened. Was it a real police officer? Was this person not under the influence of alcohol? I can contact my sources, you know what I mean, verify the information. I still have time. Unlike yours, that is instant, putting up on the website or whatever site it is. Mine will only come out tomorrow on the shelves.
No, it's very true.
Yeah.
My lady, I want you to mention this, before we close, which is very much important, and people, especially us who want to send our stories to you guys to publish it.
Yeah.
We tend to ignore or neglect this issue of business aspects when it comes to you guys.
Yeah.
And so I want you to mention it yourself, not me, of saying, at the same time, as much as I want my story to be known, it's your business.
Exactly.
At the same time.
It's your business, exactly.
So I want you to mention that so that, we can understand as you are watching this interview on the business aspect of you guys. How does it work?
On the business aspect of the publication?
The publication, yes. Because remember, you have to gain something.
Yes,
Right?
yes,
As much as I want to gain.
yes.
So you also have to gain.
Yes.
I mean, you are in newspaper, you are selling.
Yeah, I'm selling, exactly.
Yeah. So if you are selling, once you put a price, it's business.
Yeah.
So all I'm saying is that I want people to hear it from you that at the same time, I want my story to come to you.
Yeah.
You also want to make money.
I also want to make money, yeah.
So it's very much important that you will take my story that is going to sell.
No, definitely, that is true. Actually, I'm glad that you bringing this up. I mean, you sit with a variety of stories, you know what I mean? And you ask yourself, is this one going to sell and this one will not sell? Like I said, as much as newspapers are out there, but we are in a competition, you know what I mean? Why must I read this one instead of this one? I'll go with the one with the most appetizing headline. You know what I mean? The ordinary one, you know what I mean? It's business at the end of the day. It has got to a point where the marketing teams at those publications, they will be in contact with the journalists that our numbers are suffering. You know what I mean? We're not doing well. The stories there, you know what I mean? The stories that you write. So it's really of importance, which is why we have what you call PR agencies or PRs for. An author can also be affiliated with them, someone who will handle your PR, someone who's familiar with the media space, who's able to sell your story so that your story gets picked up very quickly. You know what I mean? As a person, you need to invest in yourself. You know what I mean? If you're really passionate about your craft and you want yourself out there, it's not a wrong thing. I mean, if you've got the means and there's a PR agency that you know, as journalists, we do work with PR agencies. We ask them, what is it that you have for me? And like I said, they people who are well equipped, well trained. They can sell your story. You know what I mean, to journalists. They know which angles to tackle. Unlike you approaching the journalist yourself. Not being able to tell the story that the journalist wants to hear, then the journalist will say that, okay, I'll come back to you after a certain period, which is why some of your stories might take time to get published.
That's very true. You know, I remember when I started my journey as a writer,
Yeah.
you know, I used to, and which is the question that I'm going to ask you in closing, you know, I used to write some emails to different types of newspapers.
Yes, yes.
And, you know, I did not get response.
You did not get a
Because
response.
I didn't have information.
And
you know.
I'm sorry to interject. I can tell you now that that email was read. They did.
They
read the
did.
email.
They
You know
did.
what I mean? Yeah.
They did. And the reason why I'm saying they did also is that one of the first journalist who published my story in 2017.
Yes.
When he came, you know, to shoot my story, I told him, I said, why did you respond? Because I've sent the same email to different people.
Different people, yeah.
And he said, it's because the way you structured it.
The way you structured it, yeah.
He said, but I will show you. He said, but I will show you how to structure it. He said,
Yeah.
myself, because I've been in this industry for many years, I was managed to pick up, you know, because I've mentioned on the email that I'm a security guard who wrote a book and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So he immediately, because of the experience, you know, he immediately got the angle. Say, okay, we can go with this.
We can work with this, yeah.
And that's how he came. But many of maybe 10, you know, 1 out of 10.
Yeah.
That's the only response that I got. So I agree with what you're saying now. The question that I'm going to ask you, my leader, which will be our last question, is it's now that you have mentioned about the story must have facts, you know, must be impactful, must change lives, must take, it must be unique, you know, certain an angle. Someone is asking, okay, now what? I've heard you, Mr. Tlou. So which steps do I take now? Do I go to the newspapers offices, or do I send the email? What do I do?
So basically, things nowadays are like they work with appointments. You know what I mean? It's a case of you're gonna pitch there, gift don't have time for you, and the next thing you're like, gift is rude. For me to be here, I think you texted me like, is it 4 days ago, 3 days ago, you set up an appointment. You know what I mean? You need to understand that he's also a professional, and you need to make time for him and ask him, can we sit around? Journalists are always on the lookout for stories. You know what I mean? But if you get their contact details, getting contact details of a journalist is very simple. You know what I mean? And journalists it's very rare that a journalist will ask you, who did you get my contacts from? I mean, we're always looking for stories. You know what I mean? So I'll listen to you. Don't worry about that. They won't be rude to you. They'll listen to you. Once you tell them that, you have a story. So I'd say that set up an appointment with them. Ask them, when can we meet? I've got the story. You know what I mean? Be honest with them. It's a story. I've got a book. I'm a published writer. Then they'll tell you that, oh, okay, send me an email. Once someone tells you that, send me an email, remember, he or she is the one who sent you to their inbox. So they're already anticipating that email. And you've got the right to follow up with them to say, you said I must send you an email. So I'd say that, first of all, make sure that you request an appointment with them instead of pitching there yourself. This can be done via WhatsApp or a phone call. Like I said, finding contact details of a journalist shouldn't be much of a hassle.
Yes, my leader. And what I did myself, just to add on that, is to check on when you read the newspaper, most of the time they will leave the email.
They will leave the email.
The journalist there at the bottom.
Which is why I'm saying that the journalists are always reachable to the public.
Exactly.
Yeah.
No, thank you so much, my leader, for such insightful information. Ladies and gentlemen, you are watching On Writing with Onkarabile, the show that is aiming to promote reading and writing in our communities. Please subscribe to Nolu Unlimited Multimedia, like and share.